Welcome. Good evening, everyone, and welcome again my Capstone presentation. Have you been abroad from your home country before? Yes, I have been abroad from my home country 3 times. First time I was being abroad in Turkey when I was 9 years old. Me and my family moved to Montgomery, Alabama because of my father's business work. Uh, I studied the elementary school in downtown. I stayed there 1 year, and after that, I returned to Turkey when I was 10. I stayed there 4 years, and my second time abroad in Turkey when I was 14. I moved to with my parents Israel. My father worked in the Turkish embassy. I continued my studying high school in Tel Aviv, and I live in Herzliya, but my school's in the Tel Aviv. And after 3 years later, when I was 17, in 2007, I returned to Turkey, and I stayed there for 2 years and a half. My last abroad in Turkey in 2011, when I was 21. I came to Little Rock January 1st, 2011, and it was almost living in Little Rock 6 years from now. When I have started my year in University of Arkansas at Little Rock, I had major adjustment issues concerning dialogues, group activities, and communication generally. I was used to speaking my own language with environment that I had been used to. Even thought I had lived abroad prior to coming to Little Rock. I saw that university environment activities contain much complex issues. I want to take a moment with you for someone in the audience tell me the experience of if you might experience enter a new cultural environment. Imagine not knowing anyone, and the situation is compounded by communication barriers. Feel free to relate it to story in your own life. Have anyone in your story experience? Yes.
When I was young, I went to abroad 2 times. One of them was when I was very small. I went to US, but I don't remember much from that time as I was very small. The second time I went abroad was when I was 12 years old, and I went to Israel. And at that time, I was very confused by the culture, as Israel and Turkey does not share a similar culture. But I did not know English when I went there, and English is their second language, and I did not know Hebrew as well. So it was a very big boundary for me to communicate with others. And as a kid, you want to have friends and have fun with them in class, but when you can't communicate with them, it creates a problem. But after I learned English, everything was much better as I was able to understand them and they were able to understand me, my problems, and what I think about my classes. So communication was a big issue.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue to my presentation. When someone enters into a new environment, especially into a different culture, they may experience disorientation, which is cultural shock. The different work ethics or different attitudes of people may throw people outside of the group, which will make communication and adjustment much difficult. What I will propose to people who face adjustment issues when they face cultural shock is the same thing that I have done. Even though cultural shock is a major effect on individual life, it is a temporary phenomenon. While using shared information of background with others, merging cultural differences, I believe is another way to increase the intercultural communication level. Communication is a problem for foreigners that go through cultural shock and adjustment process after. When I considered all of these problems that I have done, that I have faced as a foreigner, I decided to search and show a way to make others understand the problems of communication in a new environment and culture. And welcome again. My name is Faruk Yalcin. I am an Applied Communications at University of Arkansas at Little Rock. I am a senior student. I am credible to speak on this because of my lead experiences and the courses I took in school. Considering all of the difficulties people go through due brain migration, I would like to discuss both reasons behind their decision, but also focus more on how they survived afterwards. That is to say, how their change affected their identity, their communication, and their life basically. My current research context centers around the themes and difficulties of how people who have left their home country for better opportunities, and captures what has happened to them after they have changed their life, and how the change affected and got affected by their identity and communication. First, I will talk about my theory and my research focus. Second, I will talk about my methodology. Third, I will provide you my analysis. And last, I will provide you implication and recommendation. Let's start by talking about the theories I use in my research and why it is important to me and to the literature. I would like to talk about my case context. First, experience of brain migration is when a person moves from the home country to another country due to multiple reasons, such as education, job, better life opportunity. Second, difficulties of communication happen when a person into a new environment, and because of cultural shock and language difficulties, people tend to have troubles in communication. Third, the change in their identity happens when people who go to a new environment change their identity because of adaptation need. And fourth, environmental adaptation happens because of stress and isolation from society will lead the individual to change identity and adapt to the new environment. What is the brain migration? According to Dr. F., brain migration happens when people are not satisfied with their current situation. They want a better life, a life they cannot find there currently are. They might want a better life for their kids, for their job, or for their family generally. They might find a better job, school, opportunity, and they might simply brain drain to another country. Now I talk about the so first I will talk about now theory concept. According to Kim Y.Y., cross-cultural adaptation theory is one of the major part of my research. This theory examines and explains the natural human tendency to have troubles and struggles when there is a changed environment they are used to. Multiple strengths are at the same time at the work, encompassing the communication interface between the individual and the host environment, from the state environment and the ethnic and individual inclination of the person. In some situations, adaptive accomplishment might be because of the openness, strength, and the possibility of the individual's identity, which empower the individual to overcome even the most seriously unwelcoming host environments. In different cases, the adaptive change may occur in a very small amount for individual whose ethnic community offers practically total protection from facing the host cultural difficulties. Okay, now I'll talk about the cross-cultural adaptation theory concept first, identity transformation. According to Faruk G, identity transformation grows from the need to adapt. When people go into the new environment, they have adaptation problems. This adaptation problems does not have to be another country. Changing cities can even cause adaptation problems. However, when the change is across countries, cultural society changes, and I believe this is the reason why people have trouble. They have moved outside of their comfort zone. To cope with this, as a human nature, people transform their identity. They adapt to the new environment, become a part of the society. Let's like example, drinking coffee in the morning rather than tea. Before I came to Lüleburgaz, in Turkey, every day I drinking tea in my day and night, because this is my favorite tea in Turkey. And when I came to the United States, mostly people is drinking coffee in the business work day. And also even time I'm also drinking coffee in the school during entire semester, sometime in the afternoon and by morning, because I need to be awake for focusing on my studies. This is the examples of the identity transformation and the theory concept. Okay, now next, the cross-cultural adaptation theory's second is stereotypes. Another problem that comes with the identity issues is the stereotypes. According to TINS-DCH, Turan and et al. Creates difficulty with adjustments. Adjustment process can be hard for a lot of people, especially people from the Middle East, such as me, Asia, all over the world. We tend to create stereotypes for the people that are not from the same culture and society. And this may create problems at work as well. Like example, assuming that all Mexicans as workers, seeing Muslims as terrorists, etc. Mostly all Mexicans are not workers or gardeners, because mostly the working came here to study, and they want to have a better life or opportunity. Like also to be the Muslims in all over the world for the better life opportunity for their family, and all people are in this equality. And this is the example of the stereotypes and the theory concept for cross-cultural adaptation. Alright, the cross-cultural theory concept is 3: stay duration. And according to Tencel and Günger, the amount of the time stay or to leave to the host country. Like example, coming as a tourist and applying for a visa. A couple of years ago, one of my friends, he came from Turkey for a tourist visa, and he stayed there 2 or 3 months. After he liked the United States and he decided to stay, and he changed the applying for new visa for J1, came to the work and travel zone. And one of my memories is 4 years ago when I started the university, one of also my Turkish friend, he came to the United States green card. And after a year later also, he was the same with his brothers also came to the United States. Now these two brothers working in Lüleburgaz, almost living there 5 years, and they studying to the universities. And this is the part of the examples of stay duration and the theory concept for cross-cultural adaptation. Alright, now I talk about my methods. First of all, 2 interviews. The question such as, why did you choose to leave your country? How did change affect your identity and life? What sort of challenges or difficulties did you face, etc. In participants' start first to be Kemal Chandler for recording, and according to also Hasan Akyay. And secondly, autoethnography, and lasting analysis based on theory. Now, let's talk about analysis claim first, identity transformation as a part of adaptation. The previous slide I also mentioned about according to Mr. Akyay. Now, first, as I have said before, when people go into a new environment, they have adaptation problems. These adaptation problems does not have been another country. Changing cities can even cause adaptation problems. However, when the change is across countries, cultural, society changes, and I believe this is the reason why people leave, they have trouble. They move outside of their comfort zone. To cope with this as a human nature, people transform their identity, they adapt to the new environment, become part of the society. Now, here I will read what Mr. Akyay had told me during our interview. But my personal opinion is, it is never easy to overcome intercultural adjustment issues. Yet, it can be still possible if we try hard. With that said, after a certain time, you get used to people around and society, their culture, their habits, their daily routine, so much I started the same thing as they do. I guess this is what people call adjustment. Mr. Akyay interview. Okay, now I will talk about analysis claim second, isolation as a part of adaptation. According to Kim YY, the tendency to separate oneself from the society. Having an example, a small social network. Okay, when I was my first year in Little Rock, 2011, I was studying the intensive English language program at ULR, 3 semesters. My first semester in Spring 11 English course, that only one I remember is when I studied the foundation level. Mostly me and my classmates we are international students. Some of them came to zero level English. Their speaking is not well. They doesn't have communication dialogue, and the instructors give us the events for mostly ILP staff. Same they're going to also students go to the conversation club in campus every Friday by evening. This is mostly one of the remember I have. I also going to conversation club every week once in Friday. Yeah, this is in conversation club is only practicing your English skills. Yeah, this is one of the remembering in having a small social network, and this is part of the example in isolation and part of adaptation. Okay, analysis claim 3, assimilation as a part of adaptation. According to Kim YY, isolation and stress leads to assimilation and adaptation. Like example, adapting cultural or social habits. I was working the social works in the campus, 3 different work. I don't remember working education pioneers, but I working entire only 1 semester. My first work in the Turkish Student Association 4 years, member, treasurer, and activity coordinator. Mostly we do in Turkish Student Association is we showing the Turkish food events, coffee night, and we do picnic outside campus in the special day in Turkey's time zone. And we inviting the international friends and also American students, same also, and we showing us the culture, and we starting the conversation in the events. And my second work in the clubs is the ULR French Club. When I studied the second language department, and I joined the French Club first treasurer, Now I'm continue still in the vice president. I'm second responsible from the board member. Mostly we do in French club three things. First, French movie night, entire semester only 3 times. Bake sale and conversation club. French movie night only inviting every Friday, like once month in the Friday. We do English subtitle with movie. Mostly we inviting the only who taking the French class, elementary and intermediate, also advanced. Bake sale only lunchtime in the campus, 2 hours, and conversation club only we do in the outside campus, inviting the students who are member of the French club. Just like the same as in the English conversation club. My last memories I working in the social is athletics department. I working the soccer team only one season in fall 15. I working in the coaching staff. And this is my one of the memory, and this is the example of cultural or social habits. Okay, now I will talk about now analysis claim 4, stereotypes as an isolation from the society. As I have mentioned it before again, adjustment process can be hard a lot of people, especially people from Middle East, such as me, Asia, and all over the world. We tend to create the stereotype for people that are not from the same cultural and society. And this may create problems at work, school as well. Creating or having beside or stereotypes produced towards individuals does not share the same culture, language, religions. This affects the communication and the adjustment progress of people who go through brain migration. As the host country does not fully accept their being. In this example, Mr. Akyay explained how we face stereotypes problems. Of course, these problems depend on ideologies and the cultural or society that the person comes from, but people like us, people who came from the Middle East, usually face problems such as discrimination or negative comments that will affect their intercultural communication. Mr. Akyay, interview. Okay, now I will talk about analysis claim 5th, stay duration as a part of adaptation. However, the limitation of my research is that I have focused only on the relation between Turkey and the United States. Maybe future studies can have a different perspective to help the literature. I believe this research helps for a better social network by understanding and showing the communication problems of brain drain. Implication of my case is seeing the adaptation theory and identity transformation is a necessary survival tool for people who go through brain drain. With the said personal implications of my research are that brain drain is not easy for the person who is going through a cultural and communication troubles. For that reason, being able to understand and how cross communication actually works and how one can improve process for myself. Lastly, my professional implications are what when adapting to the new environment. We should follow the adaptation and identity theory for a better communication with others. This research has been analyzed through the cultural interaction of brain drain to help to stay more positive. Now I will talk about recommendation. Communication brings societies, nations, races, religions, and semantic group together in a web of communication. The differences and the similarities people have hard to understand and cope. As human beings, we have a hard time face differences. Because of the reason, our experience is a very important. What we go through make us who we are. This affects our brain drain process as well. In order to adapt, we change our identity, as I have mentioned before. This process is difficult, but the end it will be positive and good. Like I said, be patient and be positive. Now, I will talk about now conclusion. In order to understand and cope with the brain migration, one should look at the aftermath and how individuals survived, how they changed identity, what affected them basically. Today I have talked about my brain migration and how it affects individuals through adaptation and identity transformation theories. I have used 2 interviews, data collection regarding the theories and autobiography to support my research. Lastly, have provided my analysis, implications and conclusions. Brain drain can be hard process for almost everyone, including me. For the reason knowing how to cope with the difficulties is very important. As I have started, the adaptation theory and identity transformation is necessary survival tool for the people and who go through brain drain. Considering all the difficulties people go through brain migration, I have discussed both the reason behind their decision, but also focus on how they survived afterwards. This is to say how their change affected their identity, their communication, their life basically. With cross-cultural adaptation theory and my assumption combined, it is easy to detect communication barriers between individuals to be a problem. It is not just the countries they are changing, it is their identity, the consequences they are facing makes them who they are truly. The dynamic way the cross-cultural adaptation and the intercultural identity improvement show an option for a better job and a smooth adaptation. This is to say, it shows to us that we can endeavor grasp and fuse different and divergent cultural and social aspects into something new and special, one of that bounds and incorporates as opposed to isolates and separates. It anticipates the genuine pleasurability of developing a unique sort of identity in which cross-changing of identity is not seen as should be not only concepts of surrounding an individual's personal and social background. On the contrary, this process should be seen and demonstrated as a social respect for cultures and welcoming identities that people can easily exchange and adapt without feeling the guilt and discomfort communicative of disabilities. Now, have anyone has a question? Okay, and thank you for listening and have a good, wonderful semester.